Well, first of all, I think she's, I won't go after her on
Tom, please
TV
please do. Say what's on your mind. It's a holiday.
Look, she's the dumbest congresswoman ever elected to Congress, and she proves that every day. And look, bottom line is, I can't believe any member of Congress, Republican, Democrat, Independent, would want to educate criminal illegal aliens who are in the country illegally, been convicted of a violent crime, and have been ordered removed by an immigration judge after due process at great taxpayer expense. You got a congressman or congresswoman that does not want ICE to do the job that Congress has mandated them to do and funds them to do.
So we found out today that AOC may be the next victim of the F around and find out chronicles that have occurred under the Trump administration. And we're going to tell you all about it. So folks, if you enjoy the content, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Best way to support our work. And it's important to point out here, this has basically become a running occurrence under the Trump administration, because you have these situations where people, usually within the US government, but oftentimes even outside of the government, who think that they can get away with ignoring or usurping or outright defying the legitimate authority of the president of the United States. Whether that is federal bureaucrats, for instance, thinking that they can just ignore Trump's executive orders even though they work for the executive branch, or even worse, hide information from Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency. Again, what happens? They F around and then they find out. Just ask the fired workers of USAID how that ended up for them, or even whether it's foreign leaders thinking that they can turn away, they can refuse to take deportation flights of migrants who are citizens of their own countries. Yeah, just ask the president of Colombia how that turned out for him. There are many different cases. We can even talk about, on the subject of ICE right here, the leakers, right? The rogue agents within the FBI who were leaking pre-planned information about ICE raids to the illegal aliens. And guess what? They are now facing criminal charges. The list goes on, but apparently AOC has not yet learned, because ever since Trump took office, AOC has been doing all these different videos and webinars, basically trying to teach illegal aliens how to avoid deportation, right? How to avoid and evade immigration authorities. And this is something that Tom Homan, for a very long time, has been bringing up, may actually be illegal.
What happens to a mayor or a local police department chief that is under Democratic leadership that obstructs ICE in your federal agents that are helping get these deportations? What happens to them?
Well, first of all, if they don't help us get the hell out of the way, we're going to do it. If I got to send twice the amount of resources to that city, that's what we're going to do. If they would give us access to the jail, that would mean less agents in the community. For them pushing back and not letting us in the jail, it just means more agents are going to be in the community, so they're hurting themselves. Finally, I'll say this. They need to educate themselves. They need to review this. Title 8, United States Code 1324, III. Read about that and don't cross that line, because it is a felony to harbor and conceal an illegal alien from ICE. Read the statute, don't cross that line.
Right, so it would seem now we may be at the point, at least maybe, where people start to be held accountable, because as it turns out, when you actually have a will to do things, when you actually want to have accountability within the US government, what we are learning from this Trump administration is it's not as hard to do that as you think. In fact, sometimes it can be very easy. But you know what is not so easy? Quitting vaping or getting rid of bad habits, which is precisely why, before we continue this video and give you more details, we have a quick word from today's sponsors over at Fume. For those of you out there who have ever tried to quit vaping, you probably know how hard it can be to quit cold turkey. After all, that nicotine is highly addictive and can create very difficult withdrawal effects on the brain. And that is precisely why flavored air devices are the new wave that are taking over the market. Now, just to be clear, flavored air is not vaping, and it is nothing like vaping. In fact, these products that are taking over are nicotine-free, vapor-free, smoke-free. You're not even taking anything into your lungs. All it is, as you can see right here, is air. Good old-fashioned oxygen molecules. You're just breathing in and out of your mouth, but you do get that hand-to-mouth fixation that often is very difficult to get rid of when one is trying to quit vaping or similar activities. And if you're interested in flavored air devices, there is no better one to look at than today's award-winning sponsors over at Fume. Now, what does Fume do? As you can see right here, Simply a flavored air device that draws flavor into your mouth. It fills the void that potentially ditching a bad habit can leave. You still have something to reach for, but again, no vapor, no nicotine, no toxic flavors, no batteries even. And on top of all of that, everyone likes money. This costs, guys, only 1/3 of the cost of your bad habit. Fume continuously has invested in third-party studies to ensure the safety of their products. And most of all, Fume is backed by a number of doctors right here in the US. Now, Fume comes in a number of flavors like crisp mint, spearmint ice, cinnamon hearts, orange vanilla. The one I have right here is crisp mint. And I gotta say, I even find myself casually just in between the videos very often, and I mean that seriously, just because it tastes so good, and most of all, it is not bad for you. So if any of you are interested in dropping bad habits and starting healthier ones, Fume has already helped over 300,000 people build those better habits. So be sure to try Fume today, and if you order the Journey Pack right now using my code VinceDao, you'll get a free Fume topper, an awesome accessory to level up your experience. So go right now to tryfume.com. That is spelled F-U-M. Tryfume.com/VinceDao, or scan the QR code on my screen and go try these safe, healthy, and delicious flavored air devices today. Okay, so we started in the F around stage with AOC and many of these other Democrat politicians, and now we are in the part of find out, because today Tom Homan announced that he will be filing, actually he already did file a formal complaint with the Department of Justice to investigate whether or not what AOC is doing is against the law. And we're going to give you those details in a second, but first I also want to point out, we adequately gave warning about this. Not only did Tom Homan tell blanket statements to the sanctuary cities, hey, what you are doing is against federal law, but even AOC herself personally got forewarning about this beforehand. They refused to stop. So what happens? Again, F around and find out.
Vaguely aware of immigration law. I've done this since 1984. I forgot more about the immigration law than AOC will ever know. Matter of fact, the hearing a couple years ago, I had explained to her that entering the country illegally was actually a crime. So, I'm not going to play that game with her. I simply made a statement. When you sit down with people who are wanted by us, criminal aliens that have been ordered deported from the United States government, and ignore that order, if you and I ignored that order, we'd be sitting in prison. But they ignored an order from a federal judge. They're hiding in a home, and she's telling them not to open the...
Yeah, again, we tried to tell you so. We tried to warn her, okay? Which I think is fair. Probably the right thing to do. Sometimes maybe you play things the easy way, you do it the soft way. Well, guess what? Now we got to do it the hard way, because AOC clearly didn't listen. So here now is the announcement of Tom Homan informing the public that he has now asked the DOJ formally to investigate AOC and her potentially breaking the law right now as we speak. Take a listen.
That up to DOJ. What I find disturbing is that any member of Congress wants to educate people how they evade law enforcement. You can claim you're educating those constitutional rights. Okay, you can keep that claim. What she in fact doing is telling people don't open your door, hide in your home, don't talk to ICE. We're talking about people who are in the country illegally, committed a crime, they're a public safety threat, they've been convicted of serious crime, and they've been ordered removed by a federal judge. So it's like AOC and others don't want ICE to enforce the laws that they enacted. She's a member of Congress. Let us enforce the laws you enacted. That's what we're supposed to do.
You can't go after her. Do you think others should?
No, I think I've asked DOJ, where's that line of impediment, of interference? Now, if someone stands in your way, prevents you from arresting somebody, put your hands on it, that's impediment. But what line is telling people to hide from ICE, not open the door? Where do you cross that line on impediment? So I've simply asked the Department of Justice, give us that line.
Tom, you got AOC out there, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman, putting out a webinar, doing a webinar to help illegals avoid, I guess, apprehension, giving tips about how to continue to remain in the country and ultimately game the system.
And I sent an email today to the Deputy Attorney General. At what level is that impediment? Is that impediment? I'm not an attorney, I'm not a prosecutor. Is that impediment? Is that impeding our law enforcement efforts? If so, what are we going to do about it? Is she crossing the line? So I'm working with the Department of Justice and finding out where is that line that they cross. So maybe AOC is going to be in trouble now, but I need the AOG to opine on that, because there's impediment is impediment in my opinion. I'm not a prosecutor, but we need some further guidance on that. But again, If we have to take every federal dollar out of the city, we'll do it. I mean, we're done. This is about public safety. This is about community safety. Knowingly releasing a public safety back in the public is just stupid. You're putting the public at great risk. You're putting our officers at great risk. You're even putting the illegal alien at great risk because anything can happen on arrest on the street. So we just want to make common sense. In sanctuary cities, they want to step aside. Step aside. We're coming. We're going to do it for you. If you don't want to make your community safer, President Trump's going to.
So there you have it. Tom Homan now requesting that the DOJ look into and investigate AOC. Now, look, guys, I'm not entirely naive about this. I think a lot of us MAGA people have been through this cycle a million times where they always say they're going to do the investigation. Which one was it? The Durham report, right? The one where they were going to investigate the Russia investigation and everyone's like, the bombshell is coming. You know, we're going to get them this time. And of course, as usual, nothing ever happens. And that's kind of the cycle we're used to. So in that sense, I would say my hopes are not super high. However, what I will say is a couple of things. First and foremost, we have seen thus far, especially in this second Trump administration, that things have started to be a little bit different, right? For a long time, Republicans, conservatives, even maybe like first term Trump talked a lot about doing things, but they never really followed through. You know, it's all just like performative red meat for the base. You know, you got Ted Cruz out there grilling Mark Zuckerberg, and then what ends up happening? Nothing. Facebook is still censoring people for a very long time. We know that story. But what has changed, I think, in this country and especially this administration is in the case of a lot of the things Doge is doing, a lot of, the things even the Department of Justice is doing, in regards to immigration, for instance, catching those leakers. We have started to see, who knows, maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe this time we see an attitude of action from within the Trump administration. And I will say this right now, when you consider who is in charge of the DOJ, Pam Bondi, well, from what we've seen again thus far, if anyone's actually going to look into it, if anyone's actually going to follow through and do something, it would be her, wouldn't it?
What they're doing is they are choosing illegal aliens over the safety and security of their own citizens and the men and women of law enforcement who are out there trying to protect their citizens. Not only did we sue today the city of Chicago, we sued the state of Illinois, we sued the mayor, we sued the governor, and we sued others. And let me be very clear, if you don't comply with federal law, you're going to be next.
Yeah, so again, we'll see what actually happens. I'm not here to promise you anything, but I will say this. Maybe we are finally at the point where things are different and AOC will finally learn there may be consequences for her own stupidity, especially on this issue that we have known about for many years. Tom Homan has known about, but thus far, she has basically been able to practice and go about unimpeded. Well, who knows? Maybe for once that will start to change. Again, we're going to find out.
Mr. Homan, your name is on this. Is this correct?
Yes, I signed that memo.
So you are the author of the family separation policy?
I am not the author of this memo.
You're not the author, but you signed the memo?
Yes, a zero tolerance memo.
So you provided the official recommendation to Secretary Nielsen on for the United States to pursue family separation?
I gave Secretary Nielsen numerous recommendations on how to secure the border and save lives.
But it says here that you gave her numerous options, but the recommendation was option 3, family separation.
What I'm saying, this is not the only paper where we've given the Secretary numerous options to secure the border and save lives.
And so the recommendation, of the many that you recommended family separation.
I recommended zero tolerance.
Which includes family separation.
The same as is with every U.S. citizen parent gets arrested when they're with a child.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father from his family.
Mr. Homan, with all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're into the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum and go through the port of entry, do it the legal way.
The Attorney General of the United States has made that clear.
Maybe the years of acting like such an idiot may finally catch up to her. We'll ultimately have to find out. But what I will also say is this. If we are going to be looking potentially into AOC, again, harboring or aiding or assisting illegal immigrants in evading immigration authorities, as well as just being in this country, first of all, illegally in the first place, I think it's important to point out it is not just AOC or a small handful of Democrat politicians who are involved, or I think at the very least complicit in this. We have to also talk about these NGOs, right? These non-government organizations, these charities mainly, who have been granted millions of dollars by the Biden administration to basically, again, harbor illegal immigrants. And now that the Trump administration is trying to deport people, we've even gotten some cases, such as up in Chicago, where these charities are literally giving like food and aid and shelter and assistance to the illegal immigrants, which I would have to imagine has to be a blatant violation of U.S. immigration law. At the very least, does not really seem like the educational or humanitarian purposes that a 501c3 charity, let's remember, these are charities. These are tax-exempt organizations. They get special privileges from the IRS, and that is what it is going to. So there's a lot to be looked into there. We have so many cases of these quote-unquote so-called Catholic charities who were assisting in the invasion of this country for many years. And today, guys, it just came out that a migrant facility that just received $7 million from FEMA apparently is sitting around saying it has absolutely no clue what to do with it because all of the illegal migrants have been sent back. Take a listen. And you have to ask the question, okay, $7 million that the government gave to this shelter? Give it back then. I mean, what's going on? It's ridiculous. That's why I say, again, this is much bigger than AOC. A lot of different organizations and, people running those organizations need to be held accountable here.
Of Catholic Charities Rio Grande Valley says since Trump took office, some days they haven't had any migrants released to them by Border Patrol at the Humanitarian Respite Center in downtown McAllen. And although they have received over $7 million in FEMA funds the last fiscal year, Sister Pimentel says she is not using the money unless she has more people to help.
Our numbers are basically almost to zero. We do have 3 families that maybe one day arrive and the next day nobody, and then the next day maybe one family. So it's very uncertain right now as to who we're receiving, and how many. And so those funds are subject to those because we have to report it according to that number that every single individual has. And so if we don't have families, then we don't spend money.
Yeah, well, again, what you saw there is so-called Catholic charity in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas aiding and assisting the invasion of the United States and basically being proud that they do that for a living. Now, I'm not sure exactly what is so Catholic or Christian about, open borders and, helping illegal immigrants basically evade the law. Christians generally are supposed to follow the law, but nonetheless, it's important to point out this is far from the only example of it, right? We also got the news today that a San Diego migrant shelter would be closing, and I guess this is some lick of good news, would be closing down. 100 people got laid off because apparently under the Trump administration, there's basically no more migrants even coming in. Take a listen to that as well. And it's just crazy to think and imagine, wow, like this is really what was going on? Yep, that's correct. Take a listen.
So the San Diego NGO says its shelter has had not a single migrant walk through its door since President Trump took office. They're now closing that shelter down and laying off more than 100 employees, they say, because of Trump's border policies and his ending of their federal funding. Jewish Family Service San Diego has been running a rapid response migrant shelter that offered migrants care packages, food, legal services, travel coordination, medical screenings, and immigration case management. FEMA records show they had been allocated $22 million last year, but the NGO says they've received none of that money. Jewish Family Service San Diego points the finger at President Trump, saying in part, quote, with migrants no longer able to use the CBP-1 application, the shelter has not received new families and individuals released from short-term federal custody.
Yeah, well, guys, you see why I say this issue goes a lot deeper than AOC. In fact, I would say AOC just making a couple videos is significantly less bad than the fact that you had the Biden administration funneling money to all of these so-called religious charities who are basically just sheltering illegal migrants in this country. Now they're going out and complaining. They're saying, oh, no, please, Mr. Trump, please keep funneling us money that we definitely do not deserve. And it's like, I mean, frankly, I think this whole scandal has to be investigated. What was the relationship between the Biden administration and these charities and nonprofits? And furthermore, I would go so far as to say, I don't think, frankly, let's at least start here, that if you are basically for a living, your business model is harboring and aiding illegal immigration, and in some ways they're going even further than that, should you really, first of all, even be allowed to do that? But on top of that, should you be receiving charity benefits, right? Should you be tax exempt? Because think about that. If you run a normal business, a normal for-profit business, you have to pay income taxes to the federal government. But if you run a so-called religious charity, right, and your whole thing is literally just like taking government dollars and, using it to, again, help illegal immigrants, your organization is tax exempt. You don't have to pay any federal taxes. What on earth is that? Okay. So I think, again, a lot of people have to be held accountable here. AOC is one of them, but all of the actors who are still to this day helping the invasion of the United States, you got to do something about it from a legal basis, because this is just absolutely ridiculous. It is out of control, and it's got to stop. So with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new. Check out our friends at Fume, link in the description, okay? Very cool product. Check them out, and until next time, God bless and peace.